I'm sorry. I'm trying to absorb the information you just gave me because wow, you talk about mind being blown.
Right?
Whoa.
That's right. Promo up front, money in the pit, the bullets, a full podcast.
I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere.
Oh, nice.
Time don't matter to me. Cause I'm 1,000 miles from nowhere. And there's no place I want to be. And that's exactly how we kick off
Yeah.
episode number 227 of the Promo Upfront podcast. Little Dwight Yoakam
Dwight
for you
Yoakam.
on this
Yeah. Yeah, I
Friday
love that.
morning. That's right. I am one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me as always, let's call him the Baron of the Breakup, the one and only Kirby
Mm.
Hasseman. Now, Kirby, how the Coshocton Kirby are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, doing well. We've been fairly busy on the business side. You know that always gets me excited because,
Yeah,
that's what pays the electric bill. So that's good.
does.
And yeah, I don't know. It's been weird from a weather perspective. We've been really probably the warmest October I can remember.
Yeah.
I'm wearing short sleeve shirt essentially in November here in Ohio, which is pretty weird too. So, I love that. So I'm
Yeah.
enjoying that, man. So things are good. How about you?
Yeah, things are good. Just got back from my guys' trip in Memphis. Had a great
Right.
time. It's good to see my college friends. We've known each other, 35 years.
Wow.
So kind of, I love those enduring friendships. I love those guys and just getting away from it all. We didn't do anything crazy. We went to the Stax Museum of American Soul Music, which was awesome. And then I just
That's
hung,
interesting.
hung out, watched a ton of football, and we had a great time. Um, and it was wonderful because we could just relax and there was nothing driving anybody crazy. But on my drive back, Kirby, that got me to thinking, as things often do. Do you know what does drive me crazy? And everybody else, truly. It's when suppliers and distributors don't pay attention to their most important piece of digital real estate, their website. Now, you and
Mm,
I think our listeners even know this, know that your website is either your greatest asset or your greatest liability.
mm,
It's the first place an audience goes when wanting to learn about a company, but often it's not a great first impression. Now,
right.
you know what I'm talking about, Kirby. Websites that aren't visually appealing, they're difficult to navigate, and even put a little friction in, so much friction into the overall experience that it makes the intended audience head to another website. In
Right.
fact, studies have shown you have less than 9 seconds to either engage a visitor or you lose them entirely.
Wow.
Though thankfully, our good friends over at Artwork Services USA or AWS, they're here to help. Kirby, they have empowered both suppliers and distributors to reach new heights through innovative technology-driven websites for 24 years. And in fact, they've built and maintained over 400 websites for leading suppliers and over 2,000 for
Wow.
distributors. Now, let's face it, in today's fast paced and ever evolving digital landscape, having a fully optimized brand and merchandise website focused with that brand, that promo focus, with the most innovative and sought after features, that's going to help you turn casual visitors into repeat customers. Now, AWS builds websites that skyrockets your conversion rates.
Nice.
And their acumen in website design and development hasn't gone unnoticed in the industry as they just won a 2024 Gold Pyramid Award for their incredible website. Now, Kirby, doesn't AWS sound like the ideal partner if you're looking to change the game when it comes to a client-focused website?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that is a desperate need for many distributors in the industry. There's so many that either look the same or they're not functional or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that that is something that it makes a ton of sense for people to focus on because it does help them stand out.
I couldn't agree more, Kirby. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Hmm.
AWS is a fully integrated solution where technology and services work in complete harmony to reduce client friction while increasing revenue and profits. Let's face it, if your website isn't up to the task, you're not grabbing potential business. An AWS website truly is a 24/7 sales and marketing asset. Let's make sure your website is truly working for you in 2025. Visit artworkservicesusa.com today. Schedule a demo. It won't cost you a dime, and it's going to help you catapult your 2025. All right, Kirby. Last week, you were supposed to have the upfront. I overtook it because I
Yeah.
had a topic I wanted to talk about.
Yep.
And just for if anybody remembers, we spoke about possibilities for the new president CEO of PPAI, and got some nice feedback from people that they were wondering the same thing. And then Andrew Spellman, who's a friend of both of us, he's a VP of sales over at Therabody, and also PPAI board chair, especially in what we're about to talk about briefly. He put out a nice note, really opening up where the board is at in their selection process. So that was kind of cool. Just a quick shout out to Andrew Spellman. But what I wanted to talk about today, Kirby, because I'm now, once again, bogarting the upfront section of the podcast.
I appreciate it.
We have had a branded merch recall in the industry, and I don't know if you saw this. So the CPSC, the Consumer Products Safety Commission, recalled a reusable tumbler with a metal straw due to said straw could cut your mouth and or fingers. In other words, they termed it a laceration hazard. It was distributed through Halo and sold exclusively to Wawa stores, which is a Northeast convenience store chain beloved in Philadelphia, that Mid-Atlantic Northeast area.
Okay.
The recall involves about 60,000 units. Here's why I wanted to bring this up. These things happen. Despite the best efforts we have, these things happen. The response by Halo was lightning fast, and I want to share what that was. We've had recalls before where we kind of say, what the hell were you thinking? What were you doing? Why didn't you? They took, the consumers can get a free replacement silicone straw. Easy peasy. If they don't want the tumbler anymore, they can return it and receive a $15 gift card to Wawa. And there's no proof of purchase required. And that's the part I really, really liked. So I wanted to get your thoughts, on, I don't think we need to dissect, did Halo do everything they could to mitigate this? Of course they did. It just is one of those things that kind of pop up. I want to get your perspective of how they handled this. What lessons can we take from Halo taking that really quick step and making sure, hey, we're going to handle this the best we can?
Yeah, it's something that I have said, and I've said it for different reasons than something like this, but I believe today that in business right now, speed is a superpower. When there is a challenging issue, dealing with it, as you kind of said, lightning fast, I think that a lot of things can be fixed when you just move quickly on stuff like that. Obviously, move quickly with the best of intentions. It would be the caveat, obviously. And then figuring out ways to provide value for those people who've been affected, and then remove friction for those trying to kind of make it right. And I think that all of us who've had challenging issues that then had to deal with some sort of customer service Olympics, hoops to jump through, hurdles to jump over, all that stuff. There's a lot of times where you're just like, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know that I care this much, and if by making it easy, I think that these are the opportunities that organizations have, because everybody looks good when shit's going right. Right.
Of course.
And so when people respond in a really a quick, intentional, sort of respectful way, really fast, I think that's where we actually have the opportunity to turn people who are kind of, what do they call it? Haters into hugs, kind of thing, but literally turn those people who are frustrated into advocates for you. And I think, again, I don't know all the details. I didn't read the article, but based on what you're saying, it sounds like that's what they did.
No, and I have some thoughts. One of the things I've said for years, and it's not an original thought, but I act like it is. So let's pretend I came up with it. Everybody, you can talk about great customer service, how awesome your customer service is. I will decide how good your customer service is when shit goes wrong.
Yeah.
That's when customer service wins or loses. So I love what you said there. My thought was initially, hey, the first thing you need to do, and exactly what Halo did, you wear the hat of responsibility. We'll take care of it. No problem. It's no questions asked. And I put the note I put, fix it first, do a post-mortem later. Your people who want their straws replaced, if there's an issue, whatever it is, they want that done. They don't care why. They don't care what may have been accidentally overlooked or what was the cause. You can figure out the root cause after you solve the problem. And I think that's exactly what Halo did. And I love that. So fix it first, fix it fast, then go back and do post-mortem. find out what lessons you can learn from it, and so they don't happen again. And the last one, and you touched on this as well that I wrote, is communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate first, communicate fast, communicate often. Make it
Yeah.
easy, no friction. This is how you do it. Free straw. If you don't have a proof of purchase, no problem.
Yeah.
You eliminate when you do that. When you basically say there's no issues whatsoever to return this, fix it, or keep it, whatever you want to do, you eliminate 99.9% of the people who would complain about, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
You make it easy. Free straw. Hey, I just want to return it now. Fine. I don't need a proof of purchase. I love that. And so I think some real lessons there is they moved so swiftly that this, which can be a negative when there's a product recall,
Yeah.
is kind of a nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
love
and-
that. I think that's an important lesson.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that while you're talking got me to thinking is that when you look at it through the eyes of the frontline worker, that's really key because they've empowered their frontline workers to just make it right
Mhm.
and not make it a problem and not have to deal with
Yeah.
people who are frustrated and just be like, hey, I've heard of organizations doing this where they're like, hey, you have up to $50 to solve a problem. And I think that's really an interesting, that's kind of what they've done. They've gone like, hey, if anybody rolls in here and they're frustrated with this tumbler, do whatever it takes to make them happy. And I think
Absolutely.
that's really smart.
And I'm sure they worked in conjunction with the CPSC. I'm sure they knew this was coming. But the day that the CPSC announced it, they had the solution, they had website, they had phone numbers, it was just very well orchestrated. I love that. Hey, Kirby, do you know what else I love? I love the fact that our good pals over at Hirsch are the supplier of trust when it comes to name brands for branded merchandise. Hey, here's a great example. SodaStream. It's the perfect gift for your sustainability conscious clients, as every SodaStream bottle is the environmental equivalent to over 3,000 disposable bottles. That's really kind of cool. Now, I'm not a mathlete, can't do the carbon footprint conversion there, but I think what that does, it actually sets the ozone layer back to 1824. That's how important it is. So pretty cool there. Plus, Hirsch is offering a free 3-day rush on all in-house Brewmate drinkware products. All you need to do is use the promo code BREW, B-R-U, BrewRush24. And of course, you got to drop by HirschPromo.com to see all their amazing retail merch. All right, Kirby, enough of my yakking. What do you say? Let's boogie. Give me a topic, please.
Okay, this is one I thought just based on travel, right? And that I thought was pretty interesting. There's a new U.S. rule that just went into effect a couple weeks ago that requires automatic refunds for passengers whose flights are canceled or significantly delayed. So in other words, you don't have to run up to the counter and try and persuade anybody. You don't have to work really hard to get them to be convinced to do that sort of thing. This new rule standardizes carriers' refund policies by officially defining significant as 3 hours for domestic flights and 6 hours for international. So you're entitled to a full refund if the airline changes your arriving, departure, connecting airports. So there's a bunch of things. And I thought this was just interesting. I thought, and just for what it's worth, it said if this rule had been in place last year, it could have cost United, American, and Delta more than $1 billion each in refunds. So I just kind of wanted to say, what do you think about this? Do you think it makes sense? What are some, one of the things that you do so well is think of the unintended consequences. And so if you have any of those, give them to me. But
I do. Immediately.
I had a feeling, but I had some thoughts, but I wanted to hear yours actually.
Yeah. So I don't think any of us would argue that airlines seems to have a serial lack of accountability. One of the things I was writing down as you were talking, of course, it's significant, but they actually defined it. Cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Every time there's been an issue with an airline, it is the most intentionally friction-laden process to get any sort of remuneration on that. It's almost not worth doing. I'd rather call and try to cancel SiriusXM or DirecTV than try to get a refund from an airline because it's that exquisitely painful. That being said, I also don't like government interference, just as a general rule of thumb, but it does seem a little warranted here. And because, it hasn't been, there's been no accountability. It's like, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
we got you.
Yeah.
You're gonna say so. I think this started a few years ago with if you sit on the tarmac for X amount of time, you get certain level of compensation, all that. So I do like the overall. The unintended consequences is your airfare is about to go up because
Yeah.
there are so many things outside of the airline's control when it comes to delays.
Yeah.
Things break. I don't, as John Bender in the Breakfast Club once said, the world is an imperfect place. Things break. So, things break, weather delays, people get sick. They don't, crew members get sick and don't get to the airport on time. So there are things that are out of their slightly, not 100% out of their control, but partially out of their control.
Yeah. Well, the weather
So
is
I think
100% out of their control.
the weather is 100% out of the control, but making sure you have backup flight crews and things like
Yeah.
that. So, but I think you'll see a slight increase to cover the anticipated cost for the fines or the refunds. I think you're going to see that. So that's the unintended consequence. It'll even out, but I do like the fact that, yeah, I also wonder, well, is that weather related too? Does that include weather? I don't know.
Yeah.
If it does include weather, I don't know. I'm not one of these people who get really upset when there's a huge airline delay, unless I'm sitting on the plane or sitting on the tarmac. That I can't stand.
Yeah.
Not that I love sitting in an airport, but like I said, things break. You'll get there. I'd rather be safe and get there than have
Right.
a problem. Plus, sitting in an airport, I don't care what time of day it is. That's a bar. It could be
Yeah.
10:30 in the morning. That's a bar. So
Yeah.
I like that part. So what do you think about it, Kirby?
Yeah, my mind went to the same thing. I think, in the last few years, so I think I'm going to jump back. Whenever you as an industry run something so poorly that the government feels the need to jump in because people have been treated so poorly with absolutely no repercussions, well, shame on you. To a degree, right? But
Yeah.
to your point, generally speaking, when things like this happen, I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh man, there are some things where, and part of it's years ago, I was coming back from Las Vegas from the expo, and I had a 4 o'clock flight. It was going to get late. I was trying to get home so I'd be home on my birthday. So I was leaving a little bit early so I'd be home with my family on my birthday. And my flight was supposed to leave at like 4:15, and I got a text message saying, "Hey, it's going to be delayed." Now, I will tell you, I didn't get back home until like 3 in the morning, and it was kind of a shit show. But that was Southwest, and they did such a great job of like, hey, here's what's going on. I kept getting text messages and updates, and I was just like, well, I don't want you to fly without a wing. And so if you communicate, I almost feel like just communicate with me on a regular basis and be kind and be proactive about it, and I'll delay the refund if you just get me there safely. Like that's the challenge. Like don't fly through a blizzard or a hurricane. Don't fly where, when the pilot's drunk and it, like do those things that keep me safe. Right. And so
we don't need to, we don't need to Buddy Holly this. We don't need to Buddy Holly this thing up. I agree. And historically, Southwest has done a great job of being a customer service oriented company that happens to fly airplanes.
Yeah.
That's how I view them. That's why they succeed. I used to be very loyal to American Airlines, home of the perpetual 10-minute delay. You're going to be sitting there for 2 hours, but you can't leave the gate area because all they do is bump it by 10 minutes every 10 minutes. It's exhausting.
Yeah,
Whereas, when Southwest delays a flight, hey man, we're delayed now, or go grab yourself a beer over at, Jason Aldean's Red Dog here in Nashville or whatever it is. So no, interesting stuff. All right, Kirby, I called you at the top of the podcast, the Baron of the breakup. Let's talk about a breakup story. The U.S. Department of Justice is considering breaking up the Google. Did you see this?
I've seen headlines about it. I haven't done it.
So let me learn you something.
Educate.
So they're considering breaking up Google after a federal judge ruled that the company violated antitrust laws. So the DOJ may separate Google's search business from its other products like Android, Chrome, Google Play, to reduce anti-competitive behavior. So Google argues this could harm the user experience and innovation. In the case, which really focuses on Google's exclusive contracts with companies like Apple, could take years to resolve and have far-reaching impacts on the tech industry, including AI and advertising. So question, could Do you think this breakup, if it goes through, because anytime there's antitrust discussions, that's a big deal. You and I are both old enough to remember when Ma Bell was broken up into a million regional phone companies where your mileage may vary, and I think that actually negatively impacted a lot of people's user experience in terms of telephone communication. So, could the breakup harm user experience, as Google suggests, or improve market choice and innovation? So I have two
Yeah.
questions. That's the first one.
Yeah, and again, I haven't dug into this, so I'm just going to give you my
Mhm.
first thing. I
Mhm.
think that I think my first inclination is that I'm not excited about them breaking that up. I feel like
Yeah.
that sometimes, especially with organizations that have and again, I'm not like Captain Google. I don't own stock. I'm not like whatever. But when I think of organizations that like Amazon or Google or even Apple, when you think of innovation, the fact of the matter is 1 in 20 of the things that they do are going to work. But
Right.
the one that really works impacts everybody, right? But sometimes those large organizations fund the other 19 with the profits from the bigger overall organization. And so
Right.
sometimes that bigger pie, Amazon's kind of famous for this, is they take a bunch of moonshots and a bunch of them don't work. And then one of them
Yeah.
does. And
That's their model.
yeah, that's right. And so again, this is not a morality play for me, but my first
No.
inclination is one of those where I'm like, that makes me nervous. And, Android phones already are struggling to compete with Apple. And so does that mean maybe it makes them better because that's all they're focused on, but that's
Yeah.
not my first thought.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to harm user experience. I think that's a kind of a catch-all phrase that the Department of Justice uses to justify this type of an action, and
Yeah.
then they'll see if they can figure it out later. That's kind of what it feels like. But I hate when companies are punished for being successful.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that no one uses Ask Jeeves. I'm sorry that Yahoo search didn't quite make it and that Google is what people say, to a point where I'm not using a search engine to find something. I'm going to Google it.
Yeah.
We didn't punish Kimberly Clark for the brand name Kleenex. I don't think people say hand me a Puffs.
Yeah.
I don't like, you know what I'm saying? I don't like when
I think we
companies
should start saying that from now on. That's what I'm going to say to you. Hand me a puffs.
that's only an after hours activities that we're not talking about Kirby. Anyway, I just don't like companies being punished for being successful.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be so little competition that it reduces innovation.
Right.
Google does not strike me as a company or an organization that would sit on its laurels. I think they know there's so much going on in the technology space that you have startups that are going to push you. Even if you're a big giant entity, there are
Yeah.
small, smart startups. There's someone who's sitting in New Mexico State University right now that probably has the next big idea that none of us can ever think about, may end up being purchased by Google, may end up being bigger than Google, who knows? I don't know if it stifles competition or not. I don't like I said, I don't love companies being punished for being successful. So I think
Yeah.
we're kind of in alignment
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this second question. Should Google's use of data for AI training be regulated? Because that's part of this as well. Should Google's use of data for AI training be regulated? And should all websites be able to opt out of AI content collection? We talk a lot about artificial intelligence. It grows at an exponential rate. It's literally the snowball rolling downhill. So, should Google's use of data for AI training be regulated? And should you, as Hasseman Marketing website, me as Brand Debate website, should we be able to opt out of that? Should we have the opportunity to opt out of that so we're not part of the AI learning?
Yeah, I like the second part of that question. I think giving organizations the ability to opt out of that if they want to,
Mhm.
sure, I like that.
Yeah.
The first part, I don't know that I'm smart enough to really understand it.
Right.
And understand that when you say should anything, you know how my whole
Yeah.
thing is, I don't like it when somebody says email's dead or blogs are dead or this is
Yeah.
dead. I'm like, yeah. So I almost always disagree with that sentence, right?
Yeah.
But when you say, should XYZ be regulated? My initial
Yeah.
gut reaction is no. So I
Yeah.
understand my bias in that. I know
Yeah.
that some things absolutely should be regulated, but my first
sure.
thing about business is no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because if we take on base that we're all teaching AI as we go,
Yep.
as we work with ChatGPT or Midjourney or DALL-E or whatever all the Apple Intelligence, whatever it is. If certain sites are not included for that AI training, if certain information is excluded from that AI training, the AI model will be more flawed than it already is.
Right.
It's like saying, you know what? We don't really like the fact that in 1861 to 1865, this country had a very nasty civil war where hundreds of thousands of people died and was all based on slavery. If we decided not to teach that, is that right? And I don't think it is. And so
Yeah.
I think you have to responsibly make sure if we're going to lean more and more and more on AI, which I believe we are, it's a tool.
course we
It's not
are.
going to take over things, but it's a great tool. It has to have all the knowledge,
Yeah. All the
good,
information.
bad, and everything in between. Now, at the same time, I don't like a ton of government involvement. We talked about that a minute ago, but maybe it's warranted here a little bit just because I do worry about bad actors getting a hold of an AI engine and populating it with hate, populating it with misinformation, things like that, because that's already happening. I don't know how you regulate it. I don't know, you can't be a little pregnant. So it's
Yeah.
either regulated or it's not. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is concerning. It's something to just consider. But I think I generally land exactly where you did. We have to accept that bad things might happen, but government regulation, generally speaking, is not always the right thing. Sometimes it's very important. We've talked about it for 2 topics now. This is your
Yeah.
official government relations podcast here at the
Yeah.
promo up front. So,
All right. All right. Well, I'll give you one final government intervention right
okay.
now.
Oh, excellent.
Is a final
Excellent.
topic, just because it
Yes.
fits. Okay. This is one I've sort of had in my pocket, and we can do
Mhm.
this one really quickly.
Real
So
quick.
essentially, the challenge is there's a new the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said it's going to be proposing new rules aimed at bigger cars. Yep. And this is the part. I just think it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Okay.
This feels like you are absolutely trying to draw me off sides on
I-
4th and 3 and just seeing if I'll jump.
Yeah, and you will, for sure. Hot. So apparently it's aimed at bigger cars that would require more safety testing to minimize pedestrian head injuries. And it says that they'll prevent 67 deaths a year. Turns out that bigger cars cause more harm when they hit pedestrians. I'm sorry.
Man, who would have figured that out?
Yeah, right. So apparently, they analyze data, and getting hit by an extra 1,000 pounds of car increases the likelihood of death by 66%.
Wow.
So do we?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to absorb the information you just gave me because, wow, you talk about mind being blown.
Right?
Whoa.
Yeah. So apparently, and I didn't dig into the rules, but apparently they want to have increased testing and increased safety because getting hit by an SUV is apparently more dangerous than getting hit by a Prius. So
Yeah.
I wanted to know if you felt like this is government regulation that made sense. Sorry, it just fit with our whole conversation.
No, I don't. If we as the constituency, the American people, really knew where our money was being spent in Washington, D.C., all the bullshit studies, like how much money did it cost to figure out a larger, a larger, heavier vehicle would cause significantly more damage in a human body than, let's say, the Prius or the Ford Escort. How much? I'm sure millions of dollars because they wanted to come up with a specific number, 67%. I just know it's heavier. It's going to hurt more. I'm not stupid. I can figure that shit out all on my own. No, we don't need any more regulation for that. What safety protocols are going to put in place? Are they going to put like a guardian cap over big giant SUVs like they do for some of the NFL linemen to make it a little more soft and cushiony?
Well, but
It's just
it's
dumb.
fascinating to me because it's like but for pedestrians, I'm like, oh my God, yeah,
That's
it
what I'm
hurts
saying.
more. Are you gonna put the guardian cap on the car or on the people walking on the sidewalk?
Here's the thing.
This would make
I'm
me
not sure what regulations you can put into place to prevent a car from going off the road and onto the sidewalk, whether it's a Toyota Tundra, if it's a Nissan Maxima, or if it's a giant SUV. So I don't think, I don't understand this. This makes no sense. I'd love to go to their website and actually see the data. But I'll tell you who didn't build that website because it's a garbage website, because it's a government website. Our good pals at AWS didn't build that website because the websites they built they're a little different, Kirby. You know what? They have helped suppliers and distributors reach new heights through innovative technology-driven websites for over 24 years or almost 25 years. Take your pick there. They build websites that skyrocket conversion rates. And their acumen in website design and development hasn't gone unnoticed in the industry because they just won a gold pyramid award for website design. They work with so many people in the industry, and some of the most beautiful websites in the industry probably might not even realize they're designed by AWS, Artwork Services USA. So, hey, got to tell you, it's truly a 27, your website, it's either great or not great. There's very little middle ground. And an AWS website is truly a 24/7 sales and marketing asset. Let's make sure your website is truly working for you in 2025. Visit artworkservicesusa.com today and let's schedule a demo. It won't cost you a dime, unlike unnecessary government studies about large cars hitting fragile human
small
beings.
people. Yeah, yeah.
Whatever.